What's up, Control Freaks? And welcome to the 52nd episode of the Control Freak podcast. I am your host, LessAlex, and today we are joined by Claudioh, MTGO user Claudioh. And just this past weekend, he got second at the Pioneer Challenge with Azorius Cat Control. It's an awesome deck. I'm super stoked. Here he is. Claudioh, how's it going?
Hello.
Welcome. So stoked for you to join us tonight. Before we get started, let me do just a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce you fully. Welcome, everybody. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and, of course, subscribe. If you're listening to this, make sure to give us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts and download them. You can find us there. And I want to shout out our lovely Patreons over at patreon.com/LessAlex. Check out the stuff over there. There's some perks, some fun stuff, and it's a great way to support the content directly. Alrighty, with all that fun stuff out of the way, Claudioh, your Magic the Gathering accomplishments include the most Pioneer Challenge wins. Is that ever?
Yeah, that's
Of
ever.
all time. That's pretty impressive. You are a Magic
At least
Online.
that was a couple months ago when someone actually got this information.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
somebody had the lead for a while, but you overtook it. You are a Mox competitor, which is the Magic Online Championship Series. That's what it stands for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you also won a Modern Showcase in August of 22. It wasn't with Azorius, because as we were talking about in the pre-show, Azorius Control not so great in the beloved format that is Modern anymore. But still, an amazing player. You also have a team, Team TAC, aka Testing and Crushing, which I love that name. But yeah, I'm stoked to have you. We are going to talk about Azorius Control and why specifically this version of the deck. And yeah, if you're ready, I'm ready.
Let's go.
Alrighty. So first up, why are you playing Release the Kitties? Why are you playing Kahira, Brimaz, and Regal Caracal? Speaking of kitties, if you're watching.
Speaking of kitties. Yeah, so the idea behind playing the cats that basically you always play some kind of creature in your sideboard when you're playing Blue-White Control. In the past, I used to really like Green Trawler, for example.
Yeah.
But since Dominaria United was released, I think that Green Trawler got much worse as a card because of Liliana.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much of an investment for you to play a 6-mana card to just get killed. There's also Invoke Despair, Shieldred's Edict. So basically, Dream Trawler is off the table, and that's where the cats come in. Regal Caracal kind of fills that role of a Manslayer Angel slash Dream Trawler, which is a creature that helps you against aggressive decks, but it also helps you in the mid-range matchups.
Yeah.
And if it dies, it leaves 2 bodies behind that are very relevant because you also gain access to Kahira.
Yeah, I like it a lot because it just adds more cardboard to the table. It is an immediate
Exactly.
impact on the board. I like it. And then if you want to talk about Brimaz, this is an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, so the idea behind Brimaz is that it's completely different from what Caracal is accomplishing. Sometimes you're going to board both of them in the same matchups, but usually not. Brimaz is there as card that can apply pressure in certain matchups, like Lotus Field and the Mirror.
Yeah.
Where people are just not going to have removal. Just having vigilance in the mirror is really important, since it doesn't die to Wandering Emperor. And it becomes a really fast clock when you factor in that you can just play a Kahira, and all of a sudden all your tokens are choo-choos, and like, it's just a lot of damage. Basically, Grimace is there as a way to close out games faster, and
Yeah.
against some decks like White Winnie, the body is pretty big.
Yeah.
So
Especially before if you can land it on turn 3 before they really start going with their Thalia's lieutenants and all that nonsense.
yeah,
Because eventually I do assume that, I mean, they do just make bigger bodies than you, but if you can get in early, maybe you can just
yeah,
gum up the
Grimace
board.
is just going to buy you so much time,
Yeah.
and like
Yep.
if you play Rigo Caracal afterwards, Grimace is going to have lifelink as well. So there's that synergy there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like it. And of course, Kahira, for those that don't know, this card has kind of just changed. You can even play this card even if you're not playing cats and just have like an extra, card.
Yeah, the main deck has no
Um,
creatures.
yeah, main deck doesn't have any creatures. It does get kind of awkward. I've seen people playing it with Hullbreaker Horror also in the sideboard, so obviously that's kind of a nombo, but still very, very good card, very versatile card, and extremely strong in this version of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with that being said, there are some other cards in this list I would like to talk about, kind of take a little bit deeper of a dive into this version of the deck list.
Mm-hmm.
So Hallowed Moonlight is a card that I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're the one who came up with this tech. So Hallowed
Yeah.
Moonlight, 2 mana until the end of turn. If a creature would enter the battlefield, if it wasn't cast, exile it instead, and then you get to cycle and draw a card. So, what made you want to play this?
So this card is really versatile. It deals with tokens, so it gets Chariot, it gets Parhelion tokens, it gets Fable, both the first chapter and the last one, because Fable, Reflection of Kikijiki, is exiling itself and coming back to play.
I,
So you can get that.
I actually did that on today's stream. I played your list, and I got somebody with that.
Yeah. So and you also draw cards, so you're not losing in that exchange. And of course, the new decks on the block that are really popular right now, Creativity and Neoform, completely get completely hosed by this.
Yeah.
It's also pretty good in the mirror because you basically get to kill a Shark Typhoon token for free at no card disadvantage.
Oh yeah.
So you can't play that many copies of this. Like when I started playing it, I was playing 4 copies just to see how good it is. Uh, But yeah, I like having it as a one or two off in the deck for sure. It's pretty like broad in what it can do.
Yeah, I mean, as you expressed, it hits a lot, just randomly, just hits a lot of different decks. And
Mm-hmm.
if you literally have no other use for it, I mean, 2
It
mana
just cycles.
cycles,
Yeah.
not the worst. Um, cool. So Fateful Absence is also a card that I know, at least from the Azorius mages I've talked to, and I know it's very polarizing because I know people think that investigate that clue is like a step too far. What are your thoughts behind? Obviously, you're playing it, but what are your thoughts behind it?
Basically, Fateful Absence is unnecessary evil. The card is kind of bad, but there's
Yeah,
no good instant speed removal that can just kill certain creatures that are very time sensitive, like Grisfang. Uh,
yeah,
and Hullbreaker Horror. So basically, it's pretty hard to deal with those cards on time at instant speed sometimes.
yeah,
March, like if you need to deal with the creature with March, you need to pitch cards. So that's something that might hurt you a lot. And it's like okay to have an answer to a Planeswalker. in the deck.
Oh yeah.
So like, yeah, it's a necessary evil. I'm not super happy about playing it, but you kind of have to.
Yeah. Anytime now, Wizards, if you want to help us Azorius mages out in Pioneer, if you could just print something that's a little bit better. And obviously, this is the lay down arms version. Again, I don't know if you were the one who started playing this card. I definitely have played several of your lists, and it is playing this. The paper deck that I have currently is a lay down arms version. This is another card that I think in the control community is a little bit polarizing. I think a lot of control players feel that it stretches your mana base too far and it makes it just too thin. But obviously, you're playing it. But what are your thoughts, and can you kind of explain why you're picking this version of the deck?
Yeah, so basically, Lay Down Arms is a build around card because you have to play a lot of things.
Right.
And I think the payoff is super worth it because Azorius doesn't have access to any good removal spells, basically, if you're not
Yeah,
playing
right.
this. Like if you're on the draw against either a Talia deck or a Llanowar Elves deck, and you don't have any removal for 1 mana, you're just going to get run over so often that this card really helps you with that. Um, in this and like against mono green, this card is amazing because when you're playing a control deck, if your removal is bad,
Oh yeah.
you need to consider very heavily that every threat that resolves is going to be a huge pain in the ass, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, like
Literally every creature could kill you.
yeah, like if they resolve Old Growth Throw, now you can't basically raft the board away, or because it's going to come back as an enchantment.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to take up your whole turn. So having to rely on the sweepers more is also a problem sometimes.
Yeah. And to touch on that real quick, uh, is that why you've cut down? I know that you've in the past played 3. I don't know if you've ever played 4, but now you're down to only 2 Supreme Verdicts. Kind of your thought process on why you're trimming down on the Wraths?
Yeah, sometimes I play one in the sideboard, but the two verdict one farewell is the sweeper configuration that I have liked. Yeah, as I was talking about, once you have more chip removal that is good, you're going to rely on the sweepers a bit less.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when I want other sweepers, usually I go to lockdown.
Yeah, which is in the sideboard here. You got 2 of them. This card is another. I feel like all of these have come around in the last 2 or 3 months. A lot of what we're talking about, actually. And you've been leading the charge. Kind of to jump to riff off of what you just said. Temporary Lockdown, if you're unaware, is a 3-mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile each non-land permanent, mana value 2 or less, until it leaves the battlefield. So it's like an O-ring for, I guess it's like a detention sphere, except it hits all 2 CMC and under
Mm-hmm.
things. If you want to talk about why you like this card and what matchups you like it in against, because this is 2 of in the sideboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like this card against like White Winnie, Rakdos Sacrifice is one of the best matchups for this. Auras is also a kind of popular deck at some point.
Oh yeah.
It's good against Chariot. It's good, very good against Rakdos. A few people actually know this.
Oh yeah.
It's against like Rakdos mid-range postboard because they're going to have the Bunkbusters. They're going to have Fable, so it's a sweeper on the cheap side against them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but basically the card is pretty decent across the board. I also like it against creativity because it takes care of the tokens as well. So
Yeah, they can't combo off if they don't have anything to target with creativity.
mhm.
Some other ones too in the sideboard here that at least that I saw that were new from your list is Destroy Evil and Divine Smite. Destroy Evil is a 2-mana instant. You can choose one, destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater, or destroy target enchantment. What's your reasoning behind this, and kind of what does it come in against?
Yeah, so basically, creativity is really popular, and game one is really a really good matchup for Azorius, but post part it gets pretty
Dicey.
hard. It gets dicey because they're going to shift towards the Hullbreaker horror plan,
Yeah.
and you need more answers. So that's why I have this extra removal spell in the sideboards to kill horror. This was the best one I could find. Some people are playing like Reprisal, um,
Yeah.
which is a 2 mana card that just destroys a creature. But this has a little bit more utility. Like you can play against Incarnation, for example, so having extra removal there
Oh yeah.
could be good. It also kills Fable. Like this card is a bit more versatile, but I'm playing it because I want answers to Hullbreaker.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And then Divine Smite is a 2-mana instant. Target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls phases out. If that permanent is black, exile it instead. Kind of the same thing. What you like about it, and what does it come in against?
Yeah, so this is Celestial Purge at home.
Right? Oh man, I
Yeah.
wish we had Celestial Purge and Pioneer.
Yeah, so basically this card is there for Grisfang and Liliana. That because those are the two cards in the matchup that matter the most, right?
Yeah.
And this just cleanly answers both Liliana and Grisfang. And you can also bring this in against Rakdos, New Form. Yeah, basically that's it. It's a good card that deals with Liliana and Grisfang.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I saw this, I was like, "Oh my god, this is just I would have never this is why you're so good is because cards like
Because I
this."
spent too much time on Scryfall searching for.
Yeah, right? You're just all right, what helps? I mean, that's what it takes though, right? Is spending those extra hours trying to do the research and put in the work. Um I'm just a goofy content creator, dude. Like all right, so Shenheim Unleashed. This one is not necessarily new. I think you've been playing this for a while. In this specific list for this specific tournament, you played 2. Why do you like this card, and what does it come in against? I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I
Yeah,
think those are very
yeah. I think
relevant.
that's important. Like people have to know why the cards are there, right?
Yeah, right.
So basically, the idea with Azorius is that uh, one of the most popular decks of the format, which is Rakdos Midrange, is a matchup that makes your control plan bad because they have Thoughtseize, they're attacking you from multiple angles. They have creature lands, so it's really hard to take control of the game
Yeah,
because they're coming at you from so many angles. So the idea is that post part you're going to out mid range them. You're not going to be a control deck anymore. You're going to just stand threats on the table, and you're going to overpower them instead of trying to react.
mm-hmm.
And that's where Starheim comes in. Like it protects itself from a discard spell with the Fortel, which is pretty great.
Oh yeah,
And
they're never thought season this baby.
yeah, they're never thought using this. And in the late game, is just going to make a lot of power. And the idea is that you're going to be empty-handed a decent amount of the time. So you want strong top decks, and this is
Yeah,
about as strong as it gets. I'm splitting Starheim and Elspeth because of that. Because if you top deck Elspeth, you can just play her right away.
yeah,
And with Starheim, you have to take a turn off.
yep.
So that's basically.
Yeah, you basically never want to cast this for not foretold, correct? You never just want to.
Some
You never just
sometimes
really want to.
aboard this in some aggro matchups. Then because just the 4 mana for flyer is very good, like against Spirits deck, for example.
Oh yeah,
Like they're never beating you 4 if you can just resolve this. And
that's
yeah,
fair. Right on. And you just touched on Elspeth, but this is Elspeth's Sun's champion. This is one of my favorite Magic the Gathering cards of all time. I love the character, and yeah, 6 mana, just put 3 dudes into play. It's an excellent sweeper against green. But yeah, if you want to kind of touch on this one, why it's in here, and what you boarded it in against.
Yeah, so Elspeth is a card that are basically just boarding against the mid-range decks.
Yeah.
Like Grow, Black Rats, and she's just there to gum up the board, and sometimes you can kill creatures with it. I was testing the Eternal Wanderer in her place. I think they're very similar cards. They both have a sweeper mode. They produce tokens,
Yeah.
and I'm not entirely sure which one's better. Wanderer has a little upside when you're playing Caracols because you can actually blink Caracols to make more tokens, and that's something that comes up. But I think they're very close. Um, I was just playing Elspeth because I think she leaves more bodies behind when she dies. So there's that in her favor. So, but I think they're pretty close overall. But I like Elspeth as well. She was one of the best cards when I started playing, so she gets the edge for now.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. Like right whenever I started playing and going to FNMs and stuff like that, she was definitely one of the best. So summary Dismissal. This is a 4 mana, exile all other spells and counter all abilities. Why is this here? And then what deck is it for against?
So this card is to deal with uncounterable threats, both from Lotus Field and Creativity. You can answer Hullbreaker Horror with this, and you can answer like the threats from Lotus, like Thought Distortion, Gromolka, Sphinx of the Final Word. So that's why the card is there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also bring this in against Mono Green because of Cityscape Leveler.
Yeah. Short and sweet. I like it. And then we have Narset's Reversal. This is, I assume you're going to tell me that this is for Lotus, but this is very unique card. But why do you like this card in the deck, and what do you bring it in against?
Yeah, you got that right. It's basically against Lotus. It has broader applications though. Like this card is pretty good against Delve spells. If you play against Phoenix, this card is decent in Control Mirrors because it can counter Dolphin's Veto technically.
Yeah.
And this card's also pretty decent against New Farm because you can just counter New Farm against it. Like if I have this in my sideboard, I'm going to bring it in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that is the entire site. Well, rest in peace. This is kind of a staple for a long time in every version of Azorius Control. It's good against any deck that wants to reanimate Parhelion.
Exactly.
Or if you see an...
And this is great against New Farm too.
Yeah. Yes. And do you bring this in against Rakdos? I'm always like, if I see a bunch of Croxas, then I'll bring it in. But mid-range, not sacrifice, obviously, but mid-range.
Against sacrifice, even against like sacrifice, I only bring in like one because it's kind of tangential to what they're doing. Like they can't discard their graveyard cards to Fable and blow tokens, so your rest in peace is not going to be that impactful. But I never bring this in against
Rakdos mid. All right, good to know. See, I'm learning too. As the viewers are learning and the listeners are learning, I'm learning as well. Awesome. So that's kind of the sideboard plan. You can take a look. The link to the deck list will be linked below. You can check it out. I'm not going to go through every single specific card. I think a lot of these cards are kind of staples in this style, in this lay down arm style of deck. At this point, other than the ones that we've already discussed. You have to play a bunch of planes. You are playing 3 Field of Ruin, which I know can put added stress on this mana base. I've seen 2s a lot and played 2s.
Yeah, usually I play 2, but I up the counts to 3 because No Farm and Grisfang play a very low amount of basics, like 1, 2, sometimes none. So you can like mana screw them pretty easily because even like when they're playing basics, you can cut them off colors.
Yeah.
And if you draw like the second field, you can just strip mine them.
Yeah, you just aggressively target the land, the color rather.
The mana requirements are not that tough, and like the Field of Ruins is a pretty good utility land that you can still play with the Laid Arms version.
Absolutely. And see, that's my argument whenever control players are saying, oh, I don't play lay down arms because it just makes the mana base terrible. I don't buy that. At least from what I've been playing, even with absorb, and I've played 4 absorbs. You're playing a split between 2 and 1, or I'm sorry, 3 and 1 in favor of absorb. I just haven't really. I mean, obviously, any deck can get mana screwed, so I don't buy it. I think the mana is perfectly fine. What are your thoughts on the mana in this build?
Yeah, I think that the mana is fine as well, and people really overrate the castles, which are basically the lands you lose when you're playing this version.
Yeah.
Castle Ardenzale is not beating anyone. The mirror match has Field of Ruin.
Yeah.
And Castle Vantress is also like a good card, but dispensable. Times have changed, basically, because the castles were really valuable in the past in contra mirrors, but times have changed. You can't just step out for a castle activation and end of turn. Like someone's just going to play the Wandering Emperor, and now you're really behind.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. I've been playing versions of this on Arena, and obviously it's Explore or whatever, but like I just never want to activate Castle Vantress in the mirror because they're just gonna play Wandering Emperor and kill me. So yeah, no, that's a great point. Cool. Well, that's the deck list. Like I said, that'll be linked. You guys can check it out if you want to see the exact 75 and play with it on Moto or get it in paper. Next up, I do want to talk just briefly about the tournament, specifically if you want to go through the finals. Pesky burn, man. Pesky burn.
The Tarka Red strategy.
Yeah. So a Tarka Red, not burn, but yeah. All right. Well, I think this is a little bit more obvious of what happened. But if you want to take me through the the match and how it kind of unfolded for the listeners.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I think game 1 I just managed to take control of the game pretty easily. They had a slow start. But the post-bar games, like basically you really need lockdown on curve if they have a strong opener. Like this deck is so fast.
Oh yeah.
And I think both post-bar games they had Bushwalker, burning through Bushwalker draws, and I didn't have lockdown, as I just got run over. If decks like this were more popular, I would for sure play more lockdowns because they're so fast. You just need the lockdown on turn 3.
Yeah. So you said you won game 1 and then lost the next 2, basically.
Yeah. I think I even played temporary lockdown on game 3, but they had Cindervines and they destroyed it and got all the creatures back.
Cindervines is brutal.
That's pretty tough.
You basically have to just cross your fingers and hope they don't draw it if you get an early lockdown on them.
Yeah, but you can if you can land down Brimaz on turn 3, like it's huge. It's going to block other creatures, but I never had that. Basically, like you need to have a lot of interaction for the early turns. I don't think I got to turn 5 in any of the post-part games.
Dang. That's I mean that's what they want to do, right? They must have just drawn like a god. Cool. Yeah, I mean this matchup, it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, that's what it's like when you're playing reactive strategy, right? You are preparing for a certain metagame, and this was not a deck I was preparing for. It's not a
Right.
very popular one, but like it
Yeah,
just showed up.
when I saw it in top 8, I was like, huh, haven't seen that one for a while.
Yeah.
I do want to give this a try though. I might play this just because, you know,
I
little.
think the deck is pretty strong. Like sometimes the farm is slowing down a little bit. It's becoming more mid-rangey, and people are just not ready for this type of aggression.
Yeah, just run people over with little red idiots. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to disappoint the control playing listeners, but cool. So next up, I just want to talk about overall your thoughts on the metagame. How viable? I mean, obviously, you literally just top forward and got second place at this tournament, so it's pretty viable. But what is your overall thoughts on the metagame in Pioneer as it pertains to Azorius Control?
Yeah, I think the deck is great. Like you just have to have a good list for whatever you're facing in the weekend. Like you just have to be prepared. You have to know, but you have to know how to play the matchups as well.
Oh yeah,
Like I was saying about the Raptors matchup. Like a lot of people don't know how to play the matchup. They try to play the control role, and that doesn't work. That's why a lot of people will say that the matchup is impossible, and when like in reality things are not like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the deck is like well positioned. Like you have the tools to adjust to most things. You can't beat everything at once, but if you choose and pick the correct battles to fight, you're probably going to get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's the best matchup for Azorius Control?
Yeah, so usually the best matchups for this kind of deck are the slow and clunky decks like Omnath to Light, Deep to Light in the past, the Fires decks, because they're usually trying to play one spell per turn, so they're going to be weak against counter magic.
Yeah.
You're going to have like really free range to play the game basically. Um, Other good matchups are like Angels,
Oh yeah.
like the slow
You
deck.
just slaughter them, and there's just angel guts all over the room.
Yeah, that
Feathers
one
and
is pretty tough.
yeah, that's a really good one. All right, let's do one more. One more good matchup. So you said, all right, yeah, we'll do three good matchups and three not great matchups. How about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I talked about Angels, the Fires decks, and I think usually Spirit's a good matchup as well because Shark Typhoon is so difficult for them to do with. Shark Typhoon and Verdict, you can
Yeah,
really put them in some really tight spots.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if they get an early dork and then they start attacking with what's the enchant? I can't even remember the name of the
Claudioh's
enchantment.
Obsession.
Yeah, that can be difficult if they can stick a couple dudes and protect them. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think overall,
that's another good thing about laydown arms. You have a 1 mana removal spell that's easier to pair with like a counter spell to like go removal spell protect my removal spell, so they
yeah,
can't fight back.
right, absolutely. Um, and then we have what are the three worst matchups in your opinion, and then what are some ways, any given weekend or any given tournament, Azorius Control, and what I love about it is how versatile it is. You can
Hmm.
just choose to not lose against something, right? You could just configure your deck in a way where you're just never going to lose against a certain deck. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. What's the three worst matchups and then ways to improve them, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I don't think you have any inherently bad matchup with the deck, but there's some matchups where you're going to need a good sideboard and maybe some good main deck configurations to beat, like Lotus Field, the first one. It demands specific answers to what they're doing. And if you don't have like cards like Summary, Dismissal, or Dumping Sphere or whatever, you're just going to lose.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Um, Other bad matchups like super aggressive decks, like I was talking about Atarka red deck. Mono
Yeah.
white. If you're not prepared for super aggressive strategies, your deck is leaning more towards the mirrors and the combo decks. You can get run over.
Yeah, mono white can be tricky. Obviously, if you think your tournament is going to have a lot of mono white, maybe play that third,
Temporal
Wrath.
lockdown. Yeah, the lockdown.
Yeah. And
And
then
usually, I think that decks that play Hullbreaker Horror, if you're not prepared, that's pretty tough too.
yeah,
And that could be like the mirror, creativity. Yeah, creativity is like the perfect example where most of your game one configurations are going to be great against what they're trying to do.
mhm.
But post part, if you're not prepared to beat Hullbreaker Horror, you're going to have a really difficult time doing it.
Yeah, that card is an absolute nightmare for us if we're not, as you said, prepared. So
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of my questions. Is there anything that you want to, say about the deck, about the format in general? Any, nuggets of wisdom for our fellow control mages?
Yeah, I think that I have been playing Azorius Control since the start of Pioneer, and I think that now the deck is in a great spot, as you just talked about. Uh, in the past few sets, we got a lot of powerful tools like the Wandering Emperor, Lay Down Arms,
Yeah.
and it feels like finally the deck is actually in a place where it's going to be consistently good.
Is it the best deck in the format, you think?
I don't think so. It's pretty hard for a deck like Azorius to be the best deck because you need
Yeah.
to have such a fine-tuned list. I would say that that could be the best if the format was because like, Pioneer is like very dynamic
Yeah.
in
There's a
the
lot of
way
decks, a lot of good decks.
the decks that are on top. Like if the format turns into like a mid-range fast where a deck like Azorius Control would thrive,
Yeah.
that would not stay like that for long.
No.
Other
No, it
decks
would
would
not.
appear to prey on the mid-range decks and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
mono red would just be everywhere and just run
Yeah,
everybody
mono
over.
red like Lotus build usually it's pretty good at beating decks like mid-range do nothing piles.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, but I feel like the deck is in a great spot now, and it's like one of my favorite decks to play these days.
absolutely. Do you have what is okay, so one thing I always like to ask is what is one piece of advice for maybe they're not even a new Azorius Control player, but let's say a new Azorius Control player, they want to pick this deck up, they don't have a lot of experience with it. What is one piece of advice that you can give them uh, pertaining to the deck?
No, I think that the best advice that I can give about like playing control in general is that you need to have a really good threat assessment. Um, all right, they played a spell. How am I going to deal with this? Do I need to deal with that?
Right.
What resource I'm going to use? Can I afford to take how many hits from this creature before I kill it? You have to kind of plan all that out so you don't waste resources because like we all know that Azorius have some really like scripted games like kill your guy, counter Teferi, yeah, I win.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
you need to play a
Sometimes
lot
you
of scrappy games as well.
sometimes you have those games, but yeah, oftentimes it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, you need to play a really scrappy game, and you also need to know when to turn the corner. Like I often win so many games out of nowhere because my opponent's not thinking that I have the ability to do that. Like end of turn, cycle Shark Typhoon on top, activate Howl, kill you.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean, there's so many times when I've just made a 6/6, had Hall in play, and just just kill you. Like, yeah. So threat assessment, number one, if I'm getting this correct, threat assessment number one, and knowing when to turn the corner. You don't have to just try and control
the game
the
forever,
entire game. Yeah.
Sometimes you can't. Like as I was talking about, like the late games of some decks are just going to go over the top of what you can control.
Absolutely.
So I need to be able to see the window. Like I'm going to have to kill them in a couple times. I can't just drag this on forever.
Yeah. So we have a commenter here. Why not Esper? I think blue white's just so streamlined at this point. The mana's good. Personally, I'm comfortable with Azorius Control a little bit more because I've been playing it for so long. But why not Esper?
So like I tried a lot of different types of control deck before in the format. Like I played a lot of blue black. I played a lot of Sultai Reclamation back in the day. I also tried Esper a lot. So when you're playing three colors in Pioneer, you pay a cost, which is going to be a more painful mana base usually, and you can't play as many utility lands.
Yeah.
And the basic reason to stretch towards black would be for bad removal, and that was a valid reason before Laydown Arms, and now I think you just don't need it.
Absolutely, I agree.
You get to have a cleaner mana base. You're not taking much damage at all. So and you get to play Field of Ruin. If you're playing three colors, I don't think you can support that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Elspeth Smite, that new card? I know that a couple of people that I follow on Twitter were super excited about it. I'm excited about it. It hits creature lands. It hits a lot of relevant. Three's not nothing, but and it's an instant and it exiles. But what are your thoughts on that? Could it be a staple?
Is it the one where you gain some life as well?
No, so it is a 1 mana instant, deal 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and then if it dies this turn, exile it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I would maybe play this if Phoenix was a big player again in the meta, because it's an Exile Phoenix.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm not a big fan of this one. It's so conditional that I really hate Azorius Charm because it can only deal with creatures that attack.
Yeah.
And this has the similar problem. Like some creatures like Grisfang don't need to attack to kill you.
That's true. Yeah. And this is a card where if it didn't have that condition, it would be able to kill. It would be able to kill Grisfang. So I just wanted to pick your brain about that one. I think that it's possible if the meta breaks a certain way that this card could see some serious play, but I'm excited for it. There's not many cards in this next set in March of the Machine that are made for Azorius Control, in my opinion.
I have a few ones that I think are pretty good.
What are they?
There's Boombringer Valkyrie, which is a Bandslayer Angel-esque type creature. So sometimes I play Lyra and Bandslayer.
Yeah.
And basically this is a Bandslayer type creature that has an extra ability, which is the backup ability. So it has a little bit. Yeah, it has that extra flexibility. So I will be replacing Bandslayer with that. It's just like a minor upgrade.
Yeah.
And the most exciting one is Change the Equation.
Oh yeah, that card is hot, making all the green mages cry.
I just like pretty great and deckable even.
Yeah, countering things that are 2 or less is no joke.
Yeah, like against Rakdos, you counter everything. You counter everything but Shieldred, I think, because this also counters Fable. And against Mono Green is just amazing, right? So,
yeah, I'm stoked for Solve the Equation. I think that card's going to be sweet. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of the road, end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, like the video. You made it to the end. You might as well subscribe. And of course, comment down below. What are your thoughts on Azorius Control and Pioneer right now? I'm sure you would agree. It's pretty well. You've already said it's pretty good right now, especially if you
pretty good.
Especially if you're putting in the reps, playing on Magic Online, or if you have a good play group. Claudioh, where can folks find you on the internet?
Yeah, so you can find me at Claudioh MTG on Twitter, and you can also find my team, TAC team, on Twitter as well. We make competitive content mainly about Pioneer, but we also do quite a bit of Modern. So it would be pretty great if you guys check that out.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to help support the content, it's super easy. Just please go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Give the podcast a 5-star review and a little quick sentence on why you like it. And then on Spotify, just a 5-star review. They don't have actual written reviews over there, but you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, basically everywhere you would listen to podcasts. Otherwise, it is also on YouTube podcasts. And the last thing I want to say before we head out and call it a cast, if you want to support the content and the podcast directly, head on over to patreon.com/LessAlex. You get access to every podcast early. The actual podcast, the visuals are obviously being live streamed on my Twitch and on Facebook, but you can take it with you and don't have to have your phone open or whatever to listen to it. But yeah, go check that out. There's some perks over there. Aside from that, helps me make this content. But yeah, I'm super stoked. Thank you so much, Claudioh, for joining us. If you ever top 8 another one, you feel free to reach out and you can come back on the podcast and we can chat again.
Yeah, that seems good.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for hanging out tonight. If you were doing so live, I appreciate you all. And as always, keep spreading that Azorius propaganda. I will see you in the next one. Control freaks. Adios.